Welcome to the Dateable AF podcast, because women dating women is wild, wonderful, and occasionally a disaster. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Kyle, a therapist in private practice.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Howell, researcher extraordinaire.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 16 of the Dateable AF podcast. Today, we are talking about control issues in cute outfits, why we try to manage our emotions by managing our partner's behavior, and how to stop doing that.
I think cute outfits kind of gets past everything.
Exactly. If you got a cute outfit on, you just control away and see how that works out for you. So if you are someone who's ever said, I'm not controlling, I just need you to do exactly what makes me feel safe, this episode is going to be for you. We have noticed that a lot of people try to regulate their emotions by controlling their partner's behavior. So it's super common, but I think it's even more common in queer relationships because the closeness can be so intense and the boundaries get blurry.
And we talked a little bit about this topic we have talked a bit about it, we were talking about boundaries, I think, and it crossed over into some of this conversation. But I do think that this is going to be a fun topic today. We'll go a little bit deeper into the very interesting ways that people control other people.
It's so true. So what happens is that you start to feel scared or jealous or anxious or insecure. You might feel abandoned or overwhelmed. And instead of figuring out how to soothe yourself, you look at what your partner's doing. You try to manage them so that you don't have to feel the feeling. So an example of this would be when you go out with your friends, I get scared that you're going to find someone else, that you're going to forget about me. So I want to control where you go, who you go out with, what time you get home, because somehow controlling that gives me the illusion that I'm soothing myself.
I have a question for you about that. That if you are someone who has a history of doing naughty things when you go out by yourself, then you sort of bring in that baggage into the relationship. And I think it's interesting to try to figure out how to tease out the difference between, like, where is the line between the person having justification for feeling concerned, how you deal with that, and then the person owning their baggage of being naughty?
Yes, that is such a great question because I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on the pod before, but you have to decide, am I having trust issues or am I with someone who's untrustworthy? And sometimes it's both. But if you are with someone who's basically an untrustworthy person, you cannot fix that. There is nothing to be done. You can control the shit out of them, but it doesn't fix their untrustworthiness. And so you got to look at that and say, do I want to keep feeling like this because I'm with someone who I can't trust? Or on the flip side, if you're with someone who's perfectly trustworthy and you're still trying to control them, then you're having trust issues. You got to figure out how to get past those and how to soothe yourself, because controlling the other person is just going to push them away, which is what you're scared of in the first place.
And yeah, and that can be some shades of gray in that. I say that I think that some people who have been naughty can learn to be nice.
I think that is true.
Not that I'm speaking from experience, but I know that
neither of us is speaking from any personal experience, but
we know naughty people that have become nice.
We have.
And so for me, what I do believe is that I've tried to really own conversations with my person, whoever it is I'm dating, about kind of owning what I've been naughty about and then the work I've done to get not naughty. And then that way, I think that builds trust with the person that you're trying to connect with.
Yes. And I think that if you're the person who's been naughty, it's not your responsibility to make your partner feel secure, but there are definitely steps you can take that would make your partner feel secure. So if, this is common. I see this a lot in my practice when two people got together by cheating on someone. So let's say those two people or one of those two people was with another partner and that's how they get together, then that sort of plants the seed that this person is willing to step out on their relationship. And so at first it doesn't really take hold because you're like, oh, they would never do that to me. And then over time it sinks in like, oh, if they did it to someone else, they would probably do it to me too. And then that's when that control starts to rear its ugly head.
So the conversation you would have, I feel like it's about communicating straight up in the beginning, acknowledging that's been there, and then the conversation you have to have with, hey, I do feel scared about that, and I'm probably going to have some feelings of trepidation about you breaking away from me, maybe developing relationships with other people that I'm not friends with, which is sort of. And I'm going to have a tendency to want to control that.
Yep.
But even if you, and this is where I think it's a really good conversation of, you have your feelings, but what you do with those feelings is the key. Like you can have them, but you still don't get to control somebody around them, right?
Yes. And I do think that is one of the keys, is that if the only way that you can feel calmer is when your partner changes their behavior, that's not a good sign. Because either your partner's behaving in a way that's untenable to you, or you need to do some work internally or with your therapist or with your best friend so that you learn how to soothe yourself, even if your partner doesn't change their behavior. And I also want to say this doesn't apply to things like if your partner is abusive or if your partner is, in the throes of addiction or something like that. That's not something that I think you should just stay and tolerate and try to get yourself calmer about that. So I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about extreme situations like that.
Right. Those are, and we've said this before, we can't say it loud enough, that those are, if people are continuing to do those things as repeated, very sort of dangerous behaviors, very dysregulated behaviors, so that's a very different thing. And that, unless they're working on it, if you think that those are going to stop, or you can talk them out of them, or you can control them out of them, well, good luck. You know?
It just doesn't work. Like, oh, you can go out with these friends, but not those friends, or you can go to this place, but not that place. Those are not things that make your relationship stronger. So if you're trying to create rules to reduce your anxiety, but those rules, quote unquote, don't really improve the relationship, then you're not on the right track. You're trying to control someone.
Well, here's an interesting slant to this conversation, I think. I was reading an article in The Atlantic by a psychologist, and she made mention of the actor. She was talking about this very topic and trying to control people, and this actor, Jonah Hill, I think most people know who Jonah Hill is, and he had obviously at some point in his time, this is a People magazine example, he dated some chick who was like a professional surfer, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And so her entire life is in a swimsuit. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? That's like her sponsors, where she presents herself, is typically in a bathing suit. She's out in the water in front of, and that he was digging her chili when he first met her on a surfboard.
Happy for in that swimsuit.
In a swimsuit, being sexy, riding the waves. Then he starts dating her, and he wanted to make it off limits for her to wear a bathing suit in any public place.
Okay.
Without him around.
Yeah, there's an example of this that it's like a metaphor that you see this wild animal out in let's say in Africa, and you're watching it and like out on the savannah, and you're just fascinated by it, and you love it so much that you capture it and you bring it home and you put it in a cage in your living room. And, at first it's kind of fun because you've got it right there, but then it's not that interesting because it's not doing anything interesting anymore. And I think that's such a great analogy for relationships, that you see this person surfing out in their swimsuit in the wild and you fall in love with that person. And then you want to put her in a cage and bring her home and take her out of her swimsuit. And it's like, oh, yeah, she's not that interesting anymore because she's not doing the thing she loves to do.
I don't think they made it
I can see why they did not. But it's so interesting because I think all of us have this tendency to some degree, and it's just a matter of if you stay aware of it and, if you continue that pattern or if you're willing to do some work to, to make that better. So if you're someone who gets upset if your partner wants independence, I mean, that's a problem because we've said it over and over on this podcast. Your partner going out and having a life independent of you is what makes them an interesting person. And then they have interesting life experiences to bring back to you. And yeah, like that's something you want to preserve. It's not something you want to take away.
Yeah. I had an interesting situation recently, a dating situation where the person was really drawn to my confidence and how I show up is socially. I don't mind walking into a group of people I don't know, and that feels okay with me, and I love to engage, and I'm curious, and so I'm not one of those people that gets real nervous or you have to talk into showing up somewhere. At one point I talked, because she said a lot to me about that, and at one point I turned to her and I said, so is that one of those things that you think is really appealing right now that 2 years from now you're going to resent the hell out of me about?
Yeah, like I never even talked to you at that party all night. Exactly. Yes.
And she turned around to me and she said, likely.
So she had good self-awareness about it at least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a me problem or is that a you problem?
Exactly. Exactly. Yep, that's a great example of that. And I think that there are some sort of soft examples of how that happened. And, one of them is kind of grilling, like, who did you see there? Who did you talk to? That could be asking out of curiosity, but it could be asking out of control.
And I love Navi, but Navi is talking to you right now.
I know she is. And I'm about to go give her a talking to.
Navi, bless Navi's heart. She's going through a hard time right now. And so we all need to just give her a break.
Please excuse the yipping in the background. Okay. Navi's sister passed away recently and she doesn't quite know how to be an only dog. So she's a little out of sorts these days.
She's
not funny. I don't know why we're laughing.
I know. It's terrible. It's very tragic with child. But I will say Navi was not always a very nice sister.
Well, she wasn't. That's true. Anyway,
carry on.
She wants to be on the podcast today, apparently. Sorry, y'all.
Well, and just diving, I know this is a little bit more of a complex conversation around this topic, but that it is important, I think, for you to know what is yours versus what is somebody else's in this conversation. So
yeah,
that understanding that, yes, that's me and I'm that person and if you are someone who enjoys, like say you're introverted and you really enjoy how easy it feels to be with somebody who's an extrovert and that makes things feel really good until, let's say you get in a relationship and then you want to control their extroversion.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And I think you have to be really aware of that. I have been in that, or you're shy. I have been in that scenario where everything is great as long as they get to do it with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the minute that I'm doing the thing that I do without them,
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yep. And so figuring out which part belongs to which person, I think if you are the person who's being controlled, you have to ask yourself, am I truly being respectful of the relationship? So, you don't have to fully cheat on someone to be disrespectful. You could engage in flirtation with someone else, or you could engage in behavior that's not overtly sexualized, but if you're being respectful or not, and if you're speaking negatively about your partner when you're away from them or things like that. But if your side history is clean, then you gotta sit with the discomfort of your partner being uncomfortable and be supportive of them, be kind about it, and don't allow yourself to be controlled.
what can you say to your person to acknowledge them, I guess, and make sure that you're not giving it up, but you are being kind?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is reassure them. If they are your person, reassure them. You are my person. You are the person I want to be with. I don't want to be with anybody else. I'm not interested in that. Is there something I could do to make you feel safer? And if they say, well, you could be home by 10, then you say, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to be home by 10. Is there anything else I could do that would help you feel safer? So it's like you're not buying into the control piece about it, because if you're going to cheat, you could cheat before 10. Like the 10 o'clock, it's like the 10 o'clock thing is arbitrary. That's not something that's going to prevent you from behaving badly. So you could cheat at 9.
Yeah, you got noon.
Yep. And I think it's like the intimacy, the emotional intimacy is a piece that's also threatening. So if your partner is having emotionally intimate conversations, even if they're totally appropriate, but if they're really close to a good friend and they're having emotionally intimate conversations with that friend, sometimes that can feel threatening. And that's not something that the partner needs to fix. That's something that the insecure person needs to figure out. So
that's a great one specific to our community of queer and or lesbian women.
Yes.
Because, and we've talked a little bit about this, is that we tend to form those really emotionally intimate bonds with other women, whether they be our partner or a love interest or not.
Yeah.
In heterosexual relationships, they don't oftentimes, women form other bonds with other women most of the time. And the male partner doesn't necessarily see that as a threat.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic is really different from trusting that women. And I think it's where we mess things up a lot, is that we begin to misconstrue that level of intimacy and not trying to take it somewhere that it doesn't need to go.
Yes, I think that happens a lot. And I think on the flip side, like you were saying, in heterosexual couples, heterosexual men and women don't often form intimate friendships because their partner would never stand for that. So someone's husband isn't going to say, sure, go, spend the weekend with your male best friend. But lesbians do that all the time. Go on trips with their female best friend. And so it is a different dynamic for us, in that situation, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that, I feel like we could do a whole episode about this, but what do you think about sharing your location with someone that you're dating?
No.
What if you're married to them?
Yeah, that's fine, I guess. I mean, I think that would just be specific to, it would depend on, I would like to think if I was married to someone, that I would be married to someone where I wouldn't care about that, because I know that they're not paying attention to what I'm doing and not sneaking on me, and they're not worried about me. If that's the case, then it would be okay. But I don't want, if I'm dating somebody, they don't need to know where I am all the time. That's ridiculous. No. Do you and Joe share your locations?
We do not share our locations, but I think we are in the minority. Most of our friends share our locations and can see where each other is at all times. And there's something about that Joe and I have both just resisted. And it's not because either of us is doing anything sketchy, but it's like, it's a level of trust, I think, that we have with each other that we just haven't needed that. And we discussed it, like if, let's say one of us was going on a road trip alone, that we might share our location just because if anything happened, the crime show when we're on 48 hours, it's like, well, her last known location was.
Joe would bring out the sniffer dogs to find you.
Exactly. But so we've never done that, but we've talked about that would be a situation in which we would probably, let's say one of us was driving across the country by ourselves, we would probably share our location just so we could see, see where each other was. Anyway, I don't know. But no, we don't. But most of our friends, I think, do that. So they can see exactly where their partner is at all times.
And do they say why they feel like that's necessary to know where their partner is all the time?
Well, Most of the time, because it's funny, I have clients that I talk to about this too, and they'll say, "Well, if I needed my person to stop at the store and get something, I can see if they've left the office and if I should call and ask them to pick something up, or if they're already halfway home, then I'm not going to ask them." It's like, I feel like there's a better way to go about that, but I don't know. I mean, I have some kind of weird block against it, but I'm not sure what that is. But
Well, I do too. I mean, my gut reaction to that is I don't want anyone, I don't want anyone to know where I am every second of every day.
yeah,
Not because I'm doing anything other than I think it just really feels offensive to my independence, maybe.
yeah, and I don't know if there are certain, like, I'm thinking about my sister. Um, started dating a few years ago, and when she was going out with guys she didn't know that well, and so she would always tell someone, "Hey, here's who I'm going out with, and here's where we're going." And
Yeah.
there was a time where she shared her location with me, just so,
Yeah.
I mean, as a safety precaution, because she didn't know these people that she was on a date with. So things like that seem okay, but I don't know. That I think that sharing locations is one of those things that can fall under what we're talking about today. That there's some kind of control. If I need to see your location so that I can feel safer or better, I think something's wrong with that.
Yeah. That to me, that is what's the intention.
Yeah.
Because there are absolutely situations where for safety or whatever, and those are special circumstances. But
Yeah.
if you feel like I do know some young women who I'm around, and I'm sure they probably do share their locations, because when I'm with my young contemporary, there is not 15 minutes that passes at any time where one of them isn't texting the other one.
Yeah. And that is another thing. I don't know if that's a control thing, but what is happening with this? If you know that your person is out with their friend, do not text them unless you are bleeding and don't have access to an ambulance. Like, no, let them enjoy their night with their friend. Don't call them and don't text them. That just seems rude and intrusive and maybe kind of controlling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
So those things are more overt, like the share your location with me, but I think there's another subtle way that control happens, and that is by punishing. We talked about this last time in our last episode, that stonewalling is the Gottman term for it, when you kind of give someone the silent treatment or shut them down, freeze them out. And I think that happens a lot. If you behave in a way that I don't like, then I'm going to freeze you out. And I'm not going to tell you I'm mad, but I'm just going to be slightly, a little cool towards you, hoping that you'll change your behavior. And that is a form of trying to control someone.
yeah, it is. I think it's used very often. And I think the people who do it, they're not willing to own that they're scared or whatever their feelings are. They're just pushing it off on you.
Yeah.
That there's something you're not doing.
Yeah. Yep. And I think in the bigger picture, we live in a culture who doesn't sit with discomfort very well. If we feel bad, we take a pill for something, or if we don't wait things out. And I think that comes into play here a lot, that I don't want to sit with this feeling of like, oh, I'm scared of what's happening right now, or I'm kind of jealous that you're out with your friend, and instead of just sitting with it and dealing with my feelings, I'm going to try to make that feeling go away by controlling you.
And years and years and years ago, when I was not as mature as I am now in these situations.
I just have to tell you, I'm on edge right now about what Rachel's about to say. I don't know what it is, but
it was before you.
okay.
So you're on
Many years ago. Okay, good.
I may think of something else that has to do with you later, but not now.
Perfect.
So I had an argument with my person, and I was mad about it. I don't remember what the argument was about, but I went to soothe my feelings at Chewy's over a margarita, because that's how I didn't want to stay in my feelings, or I was going to drown my feelings. I was mad.
Perfect.
And
That
so,
seems like a pretty good distraction.
and I realized that I had some of her money in my pocket. And, and so I had one margarita and I tipped the waitress $20.
With your girlfriend's money. I love it.
Well,
That really stuck it to her, didn't it?
I felt really good after that. The hilarious part about it was I told her what I'd done, and we laughed our asses off about that. And it's still to this day actually really funny between us, but it was my passive aggressive sort of move. Screw you, I'm mad. I'm going to take this like three
Take
times.
your
the price.
$20. I love it.
Shoot.
That's a good one. You really got to her.
She never did that again. I don't know what it was.
That's right. Whatever it was, you really controlled her. Oh. Well, so if you are on the receiving end of being controlled, sometimes it's helpful to understand what's going on inside of the controller, we'll call them, so that you can connect with your compassion around it. Because what happens is it's that person's anxiety that's looking for a leash. It's looking for an outlet. And often that person has a fear of abandonment. And so the way that they keep that in check is they try to make rules for other people to follow so that they don't have to feel abandoned. Most often it is something from that person's past, often even from that person's childhood, that's replaying itself in adulthood and in this relationship. So what they're doing is really not trusting their own ability to handle these hard feelings, and how it's manifesting is that they're trying to set rules for you. So if you can see that sort of small, vulnerable part of them, rather than viewing them as this, bitchy person that's trying to control you, it'll help you respond better to it.
And if the person, I think that's excellent. And if the person is using that, I think you have to be very careful that the person that's the controller uses those, like your family history, all the bad things that have happened to you, as an excuse for their behavior.
Yeah.
And so here you're trying to, we're saying that you can find nice, empathetic ways to acknowledge it, but you still need to be sure you're not going to let them try to control you, even though they had those bad things happen to them.
100%, because this is something, and this is a fairly common phrase that I hear with couples in my practice. I have fear of abandonment because of my childhood, and every time you go out with your friends, I feel abandoned. It's like, sorry, like,
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you don't get to go out with your friends because your person has fear of abandonment. So figuring that out, but you might respond to them more compassionately if you know that's where the controlling behavior is coming from. Let's talk about what it looks like on the receiving end of that control. I think that when you're on the receiving end of it, you often will walk on eggshells to try to avoid upsetting the person or pissing them off. Definitely people feel like they're losing their autonomy. And so that often sparks the opposite response, like they want to rebel against it if they feel like they don't have any autonomy. So I think that often will backfire on the controller. When you feel parented by someone, your chemistry gets wrecked. Like you don't want to have sex with someone that you feel is parenting you. And so that controlling behavior often will really just kind of kill the sexual intimacy in a relationship.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, even bigger than that, it just breeds this resentment that pervades the relationship.
Being the person who really hates to be controlled, and it is a button pushing thing for me, as you cannot put a bit in my mouth. You just cannot. And if you think that's not true, ask my mother, because she'd tell all my old girlfriends, don't try to put a bit in her mouth. She tried to do it for years and it was not effective for her, and it's still not good.
I feel like she's still trying to do that to you sometimes.
She does every now and then, and she just gives up sooner than she used to. But you're you're exactly right that I can just speak for me, Dad. that makes me want to act out. And I think because I'm needing to press harder to make it clear to you that you are not going to be able to do that to me.
Yep.
And that's not healthy either. That's not going to get you anywhere, because then I'm going to accentuate my reaction beyond probably what it really needs to be, just to get a normal, healthy boundary.
This ties to attachment styles. We've talked about this before, that if one person has fear of engulfment, which is what you talked about, that you're afraid of being controlled or you're having a bit put in your mouth, then you're going to take a slight step away from that person because you want to make sure you're not going to be controlled. The other person has a fear of abandonment. So when you take that slight step away, then they need to take a slight step closer, which makes you take a step away, which makes them take a step closer. So it's a cycle that perpetuates itself in a negative direction. And pretty soon, both people are all out of whack. So just recognizing the pattern is a big part of it.
Yeah. I have another sort of situation. So if you are the person who has, let's just say you're more regulated, and maybe fewer triggers, because maybe you haven't had the same childhood history and maybe not as many bad things happen to you. And you're trying to see someone who has had a lot of that. And you think you're doing something really good for them by helping them manage their life. And my thought about that is that's controlling. And again, I think absolutely breeds resentment.
Yes, for both people. And so, yeah, just looking at that, that goes back to this concept that if you are dating someone that you feel like you need to change, you're in for a very long road, because the idea is that you pick someone whose stuff you can tolerate, not who you think you can change. And so, well, this person has abandonment issues. So if I do A, B, and C, then those abandonment issues will go away. Or this person has a history of cheating, but if I'm just the best partner, then they'll never cheat on me. It's like, no, you can't look at it like that. Like you need to change someone else's behavior, because that's setting both of you up for failure.
Yeah. And we're sort of we're touching on a lot of topics that we've talked about in past episodes, but this whole idea of you being able to, it creates a power dynamic as well. And that if you are the one constantly sort of intervening with the other person to sort out their life or help them balance their life or whatever you think it is, and even if you are absolutely right about that and that they're off balance and they're doing extreme things, you then set yourself up for a very bad power dynamic. And as much as that person may say yes and let you do those things, they are going to resent the hell out of you for it. I am just as sure as I am right on this podcast right now.
Yep, those chickens will come home to roost. And it might be years down the road. That I see that a lot, that people will say, I've been giving into this for years and now I don't want to give into it anymore. And at that point, they're so resentful that it often can blow up the relationship. So you gotta be careful with that. Let's talk about, though, how you can choose some healthier alternatives. The biggest thing I would say for this is that you want to make sure you're working on regulating your own feelings, not regulating your partner. And some tools for that are, what is the feeling that you're having? And if a feeling is not followed by a feeling word, then it's not really a feeling. So you don't get to say, I feel like you're cheating on me. That's not a feeling. But if you say, I feel scared when you go out with your friends, can we talk about that? Like naming the emotion that you feel. So sad, angry, or scared are kind of the three big difficult emotions. So telling your partner how you feel, or telling yourself how you feel, doing something to ground yourself. Go for a walk outside, do a meditation, listen to some music, but do something that grounds you and soothes you. You could call a friend and talk it through, but don't call a friend that's going to validate your fears. Like, oh man, it does sound like she's cheating on you. Call a friend that's going to say, hey, what could you do to take care of yourself right now? You could also journal. So write your feelings down. But these are things that you do before you engage in a conversation with your partner. You want to try to get yourself in a good place first. Then when you do talk to your partner, you want to make sure that what you're sharing is how you feel. You're not expressing a demand that they change their behavior. So you wouldn't say, I need you to come home early tonight. You would say, I start to feel scared when you're out late because I'm worried something happened to you. Can we talk about that? So you don't get to impose rules unilaterally. This is something that you get to talk about between the two of you and figure out what your agreements are with each other.
Do you find that people have a hard time with just picking one of those 3 feeling words?
Yes, because I use this in therapy. I ask people to choose between happy, sad, angry, and scared, because all of the other ones sort of fall underneath those. So if you say, I feel anxious, well, that's a form of anxiety. Like if you say, I feel annoyed, well, that's a derivative of anger. So if you think of them in those 4 big categories, then you can sort of dial down to the nuances. But yes, people do resist because people don't want to admit that they're angry or scared or sad.
Well, I know that I have had you ask me this before. Okay, Rachel, which is a feeling? I get mad about it. I'm like, no, it's not. That is a feeling. It's a feeling. I am angry. Now I'm mad. Because you go, no, that's not a feeling word. I'm like, yes, it is.
Annoyed. I'm annoyed.
Now I'm pissed off. That's a feeling word.
Yeah, upset is my favorite one. Like upset. Is that upset sad? Upset scared? Upset bad? Like, what does that mean exactly? Yep. People have a hard time.
I'm feeling mad about this just right now. I feel it.
Good job using your words. I like it.
Thank you. It feels so silly, but I have had that reaction before, really, going, yeah, no, that is a feeling word. No.
I see it all the time. Yeah, when I ask people how they're feeling about something, they'll say, well, I feel like my partner is doing, no, that's not a feeling. Oh. So at the end of the day, if you find yourself in this situation, remember that you got to give each other oxygen, that healthy relationships need space. You need independence from your partner. You need some kind of separate lives. And I think sometimes for women who date women, this piece is very hard because women are often joined at the hip and they do not tolerate it well when their partner does something away from them. But it's good practice for long-term success.
Yeah.
So there is a distinction, I think, between red flags in a relationship and a learning curve. And I want to differentiate that patterns of control that harm the relationship that are actually red flags are things like isolation. Your partner's trying to keep you away from your friends or family or dictate how you spend time with those people. That's a red flag. If they are trying to manipulate you or punish you when you do things without them, that's also a red flag. Any kind of surveillance, like we were talking about earlier, like tracking you on your phone or looking at your phone outside of your permission. Any kind of statements like, if you loved me, you wouldn't do that. Those are all red flags that are really showing up as a pattern of control.
And loss of regulation of like responding, like dysregulation, like having a very angry, scary response to things.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, dysregulated behavior is a red flag across the board, I would say. There are things that are part of a learning curve of learning to feel secure with your person. And those things are more like asking for reassurance. That's a totally normal thing. Like, hey, I feel a little nervous. Can you reassure me that everything's good between us? Or can you reassure me that I'm the only person you want to be with? That's an okay thing to ask. if you're afraid to request something, like if you're afraid to, uh, if you're asking for something, but you feel vulnerable about it, that's okay. Like saying, "Hey, would you be willing to talk to me about this?" But you're scared to ask that. It's okay to be scared and ask anyway. Um, Sometimes over communication is part of the learning curve. Like you need to really dig in and talk about how you're feeling and talk about your fears. That can be a temporary thing. Obviously, that can't go on forever, but that there is a period of over communication where you're just trying to get your sea legs with something, or needing clarity from your partner, asking your partner for clarity about your relationship, about how what their relationship is like with someone else. Asking for clarity, but not asking them to change their behavior is a part of that learning curve. And the difference between the red flags and the learning curve is that the red flags are looking for power. The learning curve parts are just looking for safety and clarification.
Yeah, I think that's really good to know the difference between those things.
Yep. Well, let's talk about takeaways. What do we want folks to get from this episode? The first one I would say is that control is usually just fear wearing a confident outfit. That when you see someone's attempts to control, they're really just trying to create safety for themselves. And so just try to look at it through that lens, and it's sometimes more helpful.
And I want to skip the autonomy as a requirement for healthy connection. And I do want to the reason I jumped to that one is because, again, lesbians are just notorious for thinking that we have to move as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but that we need to enjoy all the same things, and that we need to do all those things together, and that we feel the same way. I think it's why our relationships struggle, and that it is incredibly important for us to recognize ourselves as individuals, and then understand that there are things that are okay for you to do by yourself, and it's okay if your partner does not enjoy them. And for both people, it's not a sign, it's a sign that you're healthy, not a sign that you're growing apart. Lesbian bed debt is a sign that you're growing apart. The other
autonomy, not a flag. It's a no. Okay, it's a good thing. Yeah, one of the other takeaways I want to make sure people hear is that all of your feelings are valid, but your feelings don't get to be instructions for someone else's behavior. So make sure you keep those things separate. Just because you're having a feeling doesn't mean your partner needs to change their behavior in order to soothe your feelings.
Yeah. And the last one really hits on everything we've talked about. Is just relationship safety comes from trust and communication, not from restriction, not from controlling your partner's behaviors.
Yes, absolutely. So if you want to talk with your person about this episode, we've got a couple of questions that you can ask. And one of them is, where have you tried to manage your emotions by managing your partner? We've all done this at some point in our lives, maybe even some point in our recent past, we've done this. And so just look at ways that you might have done that. And also on the flip side, where have you felt controlled by someone else's anxiety? So those are good food for thought.
That I just gonna speak to that last one. And where have you felt controlled by someone else's anxiety? Last night when we were playing a game, Sarah and Joe and I playing a train game, and I
clarify, this is a board game, everyone.
Yeah. It's a board game. And I made a move that blocked Sarah, and she tried to guilt me after that. She tried to control me because she was so mad at it. She threatened me that she was no longer going to play nice. And so that really just happened to me last night. I'm going to say it was a really uncomfortable situation. She was really aggressive.
Ask me how well that worked out for me. Because I lost that game real bad.
Well, I went in on some serious blocking after that.
She did. It was bad. So that control, it just doesn't work. I tried it last night. It didn't work. So If you have stories about this or questions for us, we always love hearing from you. It's the highlight of our week when we get your texts and messages. So please message us on Instagram at Dateable AF, or you can send us an email, info@dateableaf.com. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
And remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of queer dating, don't text your ex. Stay dateable.
AF.